Good afternoon, everyone. I am Akash Bhatia. I am the co-founder and CEO of Infinite Analytics. Um, there's everywhere today, there's a talk of analytics. You talk about people, anyone who can run a pivot table is an analytics company. So I'm not here to talk about what analytics is all about. What I want to tell you is that there's a difference between business intelligence and analytics, and what we do is a sort of what is actually big data analytics and for retail. I'll jump right in. So we started out from a class at MIT where my co-founder and I, we were in a class that was taught by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who is the inventor of the World Wide Web. And essentially the problem that we were looking to solve is that there are multiple data sources everywhere. Disparate data of individuals, data of different attributes or different objects across different data sources. How do you pull all of those data sources together, make sense of the data, find out patterns in that data, and eventually use those patterns to solve a business problem? And we started out with retail. So essentially what we use is the ability to, we've created a platform that consumes user data from multiple sources, whether it is data from the point of sale, data from online transactions, order data, clickstream data, social data. We've gone to the extent of extracting the entire electoral roll of this country, converted that into English to have 825 million voters of India and their demographic information in a single database. And then we are able to merge all of this data to create a 360-degree profile of the user. And then run predictive analytics on this merged profile to get to what's the spending potential, what are the brand affinities, what are the media habits, and so on and so forth. But where most analytic companies stop is providing these insights to the retailers. But then they leave how do you bridge the final mile, which is you take these insights and then convert this into an impact on the top line or the bottom line for the retailer. So what we do is we work with most of the retailers, and I'll get to who we work with. We consume their product catalog. Now, if you look at most of the retailers, their product catalog is broken or unstructured. There are images, there are inventory information, there's price, there's some description, but that's it. And they're all over the place. And we work with a lot of retailers, some of them in this room as well. And so we structure this product catalog. We use image recognition to analyze the images in the product catalog to come up with what's the color, what's the pattern, what are the different attributes. So break it down into 100, 150 attributes of the image and add that as a metadata layer to the product catalog. We also use a lot of semantic knowledge bases to identify relationships between products in the product catalog. So what that does is, when you have 1,000 product catalog, you can easily identify the relationships. But when you run into millions of SKUs in your product catalog, which change every single hour, having someone to sit there and do that and create those product relationships is an exercise in futility. That's where we come in. So what this does is this enhanced and enriched product catalog allows for greater product search and discovery, whether it's online or offline. So we use the consumer insights and the product insights, and in real time, we're able to provide personalization, whether it is online or offline, to the retailers. So that's essentially what we do, and I'll quickly run through the slides. That's the team. Me and Puru, who are the co-founders. We're based out of Boston and Mumbai. The rest of the team is what you can see over here. We have Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who was my professor, is also an advisor. Deb Roy, who is the chief media scientist at Twitter, also is not only an advisor, but is also an investor in the company. And Eric and Rosemary, who are stalwarts in their own rights, part of our advisory team. I don't know if you read the Mary Meeker report that came out a week ago Mary Meeker is a partner at KPCB in Silicon Valley, and every year she comes out with the state of the web report. And on slide 69 on that report, she talks about how retail is going to change and personalization based on user data, product data, and constantly improving algorithms is what's going to lead to higher revenues for retailers. And that's what's going to be the state of the web. We have been doing this for the last year and a half. And so, so that's some of our, so to talk about the impact, some of our customers have seen as high as 217% increase in conversions after using our product, 3 months after using our product. On an average, we drive about 25% of the overall online revenues for some of our e-commerce customers. I'll quickly run through, I talked about all of this. Let me jump into some of the comparisons. When you look at product search and discovery on Amazon, you search for certain products, you're not able to get any results. But when you use our product, you're able to search and discover the products in a way that even Amazon cannot sort of get you those products. Let me actually walk. Everyone talks about omni-channel experience these days. When you look at a user journey across Amazon, can I just get 20 seconds? When you look at a user journey across Amazon, the user browses on the desktop and then goes onto the app. Amazon does not remember on the app what the user has looked at. When you use, I'm going to give you an example of one of our customers. A user goes onto the browser, searches for the products, sees these products, goes onto the browser, goes onto the mobile site, and those products. The engine that we've developed remembers what the user has viewed on the desktop as well. So that essentially is not only just omni-channel, it's omni-device as well. Thank you. I guess my time's up here. Some of our customers over the last 3 years that we have collected. Thank you.
Excellent product. Question though, if you look at some of the retailers, they're big players, and
yes.
a lot of them have their own data sciences capabilities and teams, and most of the data you're using is their data, right?
Absolutely.
So what's the unique USP that you're bringing over and above their teams can?
Sure. So it's not just the data from the retailers, but it's external data that we go out and get as well. So for example, data from social networks, data from electoral rolls that I talked about. We not only bring that aspect of it, but the fact that Amazon's been doing this for the last, they've been the pioneers in this aspect. But even then, Amazon's not been able to, I showed you some examples about Amazon not being able to provide that kind of omni-channel personalization that it should have been so far. So essentially, our pitch to retailers is that we are going to level the playing field vis-a-vis Amazon for you guys. Amazon's been doing this. They have achieved a certain set of capabilities. This is something that we do as it's our bread and butter. And to compete with the internal teams, we've actually done a lot of A/B testing with some of the retailers that have used us, comparing the internal team sort of impact and what our impact has been. And we have managed to, like I said, one retailer has seen a 217% increase in conversion. So the proof is in the pudding. So yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand again. Good solution, good relevance, everything making sense.
Thank you.
But isn't this something which any of these great analytical companies, Teradata, SAS, IBM, Microsoft, Oracle would do? I'm just trying to understand what's the differentiator.
Actually, I realized you're from Microsoft Dynamics. We are actually powering Microsoft Dynamics AX. Our personalization product is actually powering Dynamics AX. So
I agree, because Dynamics AX is not an analytical software. That's why I took the example of Teradata and SAS.
Right.
So if they have all of these data points and inputs, and they have so many algorithms and scientific formulas to crawl this data, won't they be able to do the same thing? I'm just trying to understand.
So where they leave off, and I just talked about this, is they leave the final mile of how are you going to use these insights, or what kind of models are you going to use, what kind of analytic tools are you going to use to then get the final impact. they leave it to the retailer themselves or someone who's sitting out there and understands how this data has to be sort of interpreted or the insights have to be interpreted. We just take it, dump it down, and we say, okay, even a business user will be able to, all they need to do is just use our plugin, and eventually we're crunching all of this data, and we're directly impacting the bottom line by getting the user to purchase more and increase the average order value. So while you could use a SaaS to analyze all this data, but someone has to sit out there and make sense of what this data is telling them.
When you say make sense of the data, then it means it is totally automated. It will integrate to the current ERP and analytics which a customer has already invested.
Absolutely.
And it automatically creates those dashboards or whatever
Absolutely.
you need to do. What challenge you will face when you get into, or are you facing the challenge on the big data side in India? Because India is, what you explain,
Right.
your customers pretty much okay
Right.
on the geographies you have put, but in India it's a different market.
Sure.
And a different kind of customer behavior, personalization. What are the challenges you face?
I think the biggest challenge is customers not realizing what analytics is all about. Like I talked about in the beginning, is someone who runs a pivot table on an Excel also call themselves analytic companies, right? So what is the differentiation between a BI tool and an analytics tool? What's the difference between analytics and predictive analytics is something that we've gone through. We've been around for the last 3 years. We've done the learning curve. We've crossed the learning curve with the retailers in India. And so I think the biggest challenge that we have right now is essentially how do you seamlessly integrate the product without disrupting their operations. And we've worked on that as well. In fact, our fastest integration has been less than half a day. Our longest integration has been about 3 weeks. And so with minimal disruption to their operations, we have been able to sort of overcome that challenge as well.
I think the kind of conversion increases that you talked about is
Yes.
almost like dream for most retailers,
Yes.
like 217% growth. So just future group employing this and growing its conversion to 217% would be massive.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering why, if this is common knowledge, then why everybody is kind of not used it like immediately and this has not become like the rage of the town. With every one of us in the room here, probably right now, going up to
So
sign up your product.
Sure. Very good question. In fact, I should mention that you see over there B2W Digital, which is sort of the largest. It's like the Amazon of Brazil. And they've been using a company called Rich Relevance for the longest time. Rich Relevance is sort of the leader in personalization. It's a company that was found outside of, by engineers out of Amazon. And they've been around for the last 15 years. And with B2W Digital, they've spent about 3 years completely integrated into the site. But when B2W Digital heard about our, the approach from a user's perspective and the product perspective, that was something that was very fresh to them. And so they wanted to try us out. So they did an A/B test between us and Rich Relevance. So within a span of 3 weeks, we not only ported our product into Portuguese, but also implemented it on their site, and we were live being tested against Rich Relevance. And on every count, whether it was the average order value, whether it was the conversions rates, whether it was the CTR, we beat Rich Relevance by almost a margin of about 10 to 12%. In fact, so much so that they projected the revenues that we were going to impact to the tune of about $125 million over the year, just by using ours. So the point I want to make is that yes, there's a great impact after using our product. It also depends on whether the retailers follow the best practices that we advocate and ask them to sort of use during the implementation. And some of the retailers do not do it, some do not have the technical expertise to do it. So that's where the variation comes in. And of course, it also depends on the sort of the traffic that the retailers sort of have on their sites as well. And if there's not much traffic, then there's not much conversions that we can provide as well. Thank you.